Hey, this is Dimitris, the Curious Tanguero. My goal is to bring more people to tango and more tango to people. And today I'm sharing with you the third and final part of the interview with Oa Metzner. If you haven't already listened to the other episodes, don't worry, you can go back after. They are not in order. So in this part of the interview, we're going to cover resistance, density, lightness, and heaviness in tango. We'll also cover how Oa would start again if she was starting today from zero. And we'll dive deeper into the role of processed emotional baggage in our dance. Finally, we're going to close by touching a bit on the importance of alignment and feet articulation and the difference between leading and following from the outskirts of the body versus leading from the core. If you haven't heard the previous episodes, I invite you to listen them to again before or after this episode. They were eye-opening for me and I hope they can do the same for you. If you haven't followed the podcast yet, please, what are you waiting for? Look for the follow button. And also, if you haven't joined the Curious Tanguero newsletter, again, what are you waiting for? It's free, it's fun, you're going to learn many ways to improve your tango. Just go to thecurioustanguero.com. Let's start. For example, there is one word that is very popular in tango, that is the word of resistance. Create resistance. I need more resistance. I need less resistance. How much resistance? What is resistance? So since this word is used very, very widely in tango, I want to understand if you are using it when you're teaching, and if yes, what does it mean to you? If no, why?
I use resistance. I use a few words that popping up. One is resistance. Another one is density, which is for me a better word than resistance. The third one is lightness versus heaviness. So these four words is the ones that I often refer to. And they are from the same group of words and group of ideas about dance in my brain, in my mind, but they mean very different things. So resistance is the impulse comes and I want to resist that impulse to do whatever. Yeah. So resistance is the contra, right? It's like there's this force that's coming and there's another force that immediately goes against that initial force. That is resistance. Now that can be used in a positive way, can be really negative. Negative way will be heaviness. So if you've ever had resistance that it's going against you when you lead, yeah. So if you've been leading and you've had a follower, you give the impulse and you feel like you have to apply a lot of force just to move this follower. That's heavy. Why is it heavy? Because she's probably resisting. Maybe because she's not well aligned, maybe because she's not putting in her own work inside her own body. She's waiting for you to move her, which is heaviness. She's waiting for you to move her. And that, again, that connects with the resistance idea. Like, I want to be resisting my partner so that, he can move, he can overforce me. So eventually I will move. The lightness is sort of the opposite. Lightness is the force comes, I recognize this force, and I'm going to move along with this force, but out of my own body alignment, out of my own body work. That for me is the epitome of what I want to do in my dance. I feel the energy coming from the leader. I recognize it, I'm aware of it, and I'm saying to my own body, there's this energy that comes from my leader. How do I organize my own body and the energies inside my own body so I can move in the direction that the leader gives me this impulse? That is lightness. So light followers, now there's light followers and then non-existent followers, or followers who are just way too light. They're non-present. And that's, again, two different things. Light followers in a good way, they will give you the response and they will move along, let's say. They don't need you to push them, which is heavy, and they don't disappear, which is like, this is no presence, right? There's a difference there. So lightness is somewhere in the middle where the follower is creating her or his own movement following the impulse. It's from their own body work inside her own body that is not moved by the leader. And then there's density, and density is how light. Do I make my lightness? How do I, the moment the impulse comes, do I make my body move in the exact same moment? Or do I sort of think, I see the impulse, I feel it, I respond to it, but I'm going to respond to it in a slower way. It's still going to be inside my body. I'm not going to make you move me. I'm going to move myself, but I'm going to move it at a different speed. If I'm very light, like let's say music like fresedo, yeah, for me, it's like fresedo is very light, very soft, very romantic. Fresedo, if I try to give too much density to my dance partner, it's just not going to match, right? It's like, for me, technique and musicality come hand in hand. So if the music is very light, I want my body to respond to the impulse from the leader in a very almost immediate way. So I feel like I'm floating above the ground. Yeah. So I feel like I'm moving my body immediately to the response. When it's something that is heavier, I don't know, like some heavy troilo, I don't know, something. Obviously, my movement needs to be different. I'm going to add a lot of density to my lightness. So the impulse will come from the leader, and I'm going to perceive it, and I'm going to tell my leader, I feel what you're doing. I see what you want me to do, but I'm going to take my own time, and I'm going to add my own power to this movement. So that movement becomes dense. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, and it clarifies something that you said before about leading and following, that the follower takes, understands, interprets, and then she adds something to that movement, and that part is the power part that you just mentioned, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wonderful. It's for me, it's very interesting because a lot of the things that you discuss, for example, for the followers, I always see them from the leader's perspective. And I'm like, yeah, I need to do the same things too. Because like there's so many things that are similar between the two roles. And unfortunately, for some reason, we have separated the two roles a lot in our minds. And actually, if we can go in that direction, it would be lovely. If we can discuss a little bit this new trend, well, relatively new trend that we have now, that a lot of followers, they want to learn how to lead. Okay. And I would like to understand, how do you see this trend? How do you see if there are any right or wrong reasons for this trend? Okay. And also if there is a good time to include it in someone's training.
Very good question. It's definitely a trend that I'm participating in. I'm leading, I would say almost half of the time when I go to milongas, I'm trying to lead. There's some milongas when I end up not doing it, but there's some milongas where I only lead. So it's approximately, let's say 40-60. Yeah. I think it's great. It's fantastic. Ladies, if you're a lady, or if you've been a leader follower, like a male follower all your life, go start leading, and vice versa. Leaders, start following. It's great to understand the other side. It's such a mind-opening and body-opening experience. But if you do it a bit more properly. Do it with intention. Again, being aware of what you're doing, actually putting in the work to study it, because that's when you're going to learn and grow from this. I think it's a fantastic trend. In the complete beginners courses that when I'm teaching, I'm always teaching both roles to everyone. So I'm saying, traditionally, men have been leading, women have been following, but we're in the 21st century, everyone does everything. And then later on, you can choose what you do, right? People can still make a choice that which role is going to be their primary role. But I want people to learn both roles from the beginning. The positives of it, we understand the other side. We understand what works, what doesn't work, what it feels like when it doesn't work, and what it feels like when it does work. It's just the freedom of being aware, of being capable. Now, the good reasons to do it is curiosity, is I want to improve, I want to understand. Not such great reasons, in my opinion, for the followers, for women to start leading, if they've been a follower most of their life, is I am bitter because nobody dances with me. So I'm gonna just learn to lead because you don't dance with me. That is in my opinion, a very hurt and very traumatizing reason to start leading. is this out of spite, out of anger. So if we start leading because we're curious, because we want to expand our knowledge of tango, because we believe that there's a lot more that we can learn about tango and about other people, if we learn to lead from that perspective or to follow from that perspective, fantastic. Great.
Have you noticed the same increase of interest for leaders
Not the
getting
same.
into following?
Not the same, not even nearly the same. But I did one workshop for leaders who wanted to follow, and it was quite popular. There were a lot of men who came, and they're still sometimes asking me like, "Hey, when's the next one?" Which I think is very heartwarming. I just think it's great. So yeah, I think there's more interest, but more for fun. So men, typically, if there have been men leading, they would start following more for out of fun, because in most communities there's enough women, more women than men, so men typically don't necessarily need to start following, but following is fun, so why wouldn't they have it?
I feel the same way. I was learning tango in a certain way for the first, I will say, 14 years, my tango journey. And during that time, the role of the leader and the follower were very different in my head. And then I met some teachers that, for me, they saw me that the only real difference between a follower and a leader is who gives the first intention. And then the rest, it seems to be exactly the same way we step, the same way we push the floor, the same everything. And it's when I realized, I was like 14 years. And now I have to retrain my whole nervous system, my whole coordination. I have to remove 14 years of bad habits. And this is actually why a lot of people, when I dance the milonga, they ask, how many years do you dance? And I feel a little bit like bad answering, because it's like, it's not a good answer, because like after 14 years, I realized I was probably doing almost everything wrong. So I'm kind of like, I don't want to tell you. Is it like, I feel embarrassed. Can I tell you like 2 to 3 years from now? I will tell you. But
it's not bad habits. It's your tango baggage. Think of it this way: it's a tango baggage that you've processed. Great, fantastic, well done.
I am processing it. It's not processed yet. I'm in the process of processing
it. It's a process of processing.
Yes, and it doesn't feel good some of the time. Some of the times it feels amazing when something finally clicks and you're like, oh, that's what she meant. Oh, that's what she wanted. Like, I remember it was one milonga, and like all the maestros were there, and Alejandra Mantignan was there. And I asked her to dance. And when you dance with Mantignan, you know that if there's any problem, it's you. It's like, it's not her, it's you. It's like, you know that. And you have like this machine that can do everything. And suddenly at that moment, I felt I could not do anything properly. And this of realizing, okay, I've been dancing for 14 years and I still cannot do, when I hold a person like that, when dancer like that, my embrace, and I cannot do it, it's like something is wrong. And this is actually what made me start asking myself, okay, let's start from zero. Let's see where that takes us. And I want to ask you, if you had to start from zero, how would you structure your tango learning journey?
I probably wouldn't have changed too much, because again, I believe in processes that need to take place for us to be who we are. I believe all my failures and mistakes and pains that I've experienced in tango, emotional pains, physical pains, they were necessary to make me, and I'm proud of being who I am. I was like, yeah, I did reasonably well given the circumstances. So I'm very happy to be where I am. So, would I change that? Probably not. But that said, I probably, if I could have known where I'm going and what's important for tango, I probably would have started, not necessarily like studying like crazy much earlier, but I would have not stopped studying, because when I started tango, the first, let's say 3 years, 2 years, I was studying, but because I was pretty talented and I was very eager and I became popular in milongas, that got to my head. So as soon as I started traveling to events, and for the next almost 10 years, I started traveling, and then for maybe 8, 9 years, I did not do much studying. And that is, I mean, I did something, but it was very minimal and just certainly not the right way. I think I really believe that mileage is important in tango. So doing a lot of dancing, by all means, everyone go and do your mileage. It's important. But do not stop studying, because the amount of bad habits that I've acquired over those, 8, 9 years that I didn't do anything, just dancing socially, especially given that I was still doing my desk job as an architect, and I was obviously a tall person with a lot of this in my body that is not very beneficial for tango. I have acquired a lot of bad habits. So it took me a while to break away those habits. But on the other hand, now that I'm teaching, I know all these habits that I can see them. Like I see the person in the moment they step into the class. I'm like, I know what's going to be a problem. Just because I've been through that. I've been through fixing myself. I've been through like, how the hell do I get rid of this horrible habit that I have? And, it was just figuring out ways to fix myself that now I can see how I can help other people. So for my own personal journey, I think making all those mistakes, having all those issues was actually beneficial, because now I can see it in others and I know how to help them. So it's a yes and no question.
It's important. I remember, I will not say names, but it was about 12 years ago, I think, 11. I was taking a class with like a world champion, and I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel he could give any information. And then I went to my teachers, and I was like, "Why?" And they told me, "Look, this guy has been dancing since he was probably like 3 or 4 years old. He hasn't. Everything is natural for him. He didn't have to go through the process of fixing something, which would allow him to actually explain it a lot better after." And I think this process of understanding ourselves, processing our own emotional baggage and our own experiences, and getting to the bad habits and then finding a way to get out of them, it's actually what makes a good teacher. And you mentioned that you had like about 8, 9 years of going to events, and for me it was similar experience. I was dancing, people wanted to dance with me, so I was like, I'm good. It's like it's working. I mean, nobody's on the floor, nobody fell down. And I really like people were asking, how many years do you dance? And sometimes you take that very like, oh, they are asking me, I'm good, how many years do you dance? And I know that some people are getting insulted if you ask them, like, why do you ask? It's like, are you trying to judge me or something? And after a while, I start saying that the only true reason to ask a person how many years they dance is to find if the problem is permanent or there is still like a way to change it. Of course, I was joking, but I think this is the bad habits. If somebody tells you, I danced for 15 or 20 years, and in your mind you're thinking, you dance like that? It's like, it's not a good thing. It's the opposite. I would prefer if he would say like, I danced for 5 months, be like, wow, that's amazing then. It's like, it's the opposite. I want to ask you something. I saw one of your posts where you said this. You said, I sincerely believe tango is better with processed life baggage, with pains, tragedies, and resilience that comes out of them, and with victories and humbleness that comes with hard-earned tranquility. I want to ask you, why did you write it, and what does it mean? I know we touched a little bit left and right, but yes, I would like to know.
I am generally, when I write things, it's something that usually I write things when I've been inspired by something I've seen in the milonga, for instance. Sometimes like the post about being tall and needing to work more for tall people. It was inspired by observing a tall dancer who was doing this. And I was like, if only she could just connect her body in a more integrated way, she would be a much better dancer. The post about the life baggage was because over the last 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years, I've been going through a lot of personal life things that were and are deeply changing me as who I am. And it was interesting. Last year was really difficult for me. It was a horrible year, and I actually stepped out of tango, out of everything for some time. And then I messaged because some people started writing me, "Where are you? What's happening?" And to one of the people, I responded like, "Listen, in brief, this is what happened in my life. So I'm taking my break from tango. I don't know if I'm going to come back." And she actually wrote me, "It's horrible what's happening to you, and I'm so sorry that you're struggling. But when you come back, your tango will be different." And I was thinking, yeah, she's right. My tango will be different. Because I'm going to be a new person. And now then coming back and now observing myself in the dance, being a different person with all this work that I've been doing on myself over the last years, I feel like a different person, and I feel my tango is richer. I am more calm about it. I'm more forgiving of myself and of the others. I'm more understanding and more raw about it, probably. And so, yeah, it's a very, like, when I write things, it's usually coming from personal observations or personal stuff that I'm going through. So it's almost like a personal journal, let's put it that way. And I see just how much meaning, how much more deep meaning I have inside myself when I dance tango, having done this process of the life baggage. And I'm still going through it right now. It's another life-defining year that I'm going through right now. I think it continues to change me, but I like what I see. I think it's, at least for me, I feel like I have a lot more to give tango and give my partners and give to the world than I used to. So it's enriching me and enriching my dance partner and my dance with a partner, if I've done some work on myself. But yeah, if I just come with my trauma and if I'm angry about it or in pain, I'm going to be probably consuming tango, and I'm going to be like, okay, fix me, help me. Versus if I've processed it, I'll be like, okay, I've experienced this and now I've worked on it, and I feel like I have much more to give rather than if I just come with nothing. So it's giving versus taking.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to put it. Yes, absolutely. It's, I think it has to do with the feeling of meeting really another person. And person, I really, it's like, for me, when I say person, it's like, it's a big word. It's like you're a person,
Yes.
and that takes some hard hits. Absolutely. I would like to ask you one final topic, and I know probably this is not just an easy topic to discuss, especially for podcasts when people are mostly going to listen to it. You have discussed a lot about the importance of how we connect, how we take the energy from the back, how the foot articulates. So I came back from a workshop. I was there for like 4 days with some of my favorite teachers, and like we addressed the topic of leading from the core, okay, and the importance of properly stepping, using the whole foot not as a point but actually as a surface, and articulating the angles as well. And I realized that if the push comes, from the correct foot placement and articulation and push, articulation of the angle, and if the body has the right alignment and tone, everything else becomes easier. The pivots are created not as an individual element, but as a consequence of direction. Grounding happens more naturally. We can lead the feet of our partner without necessarily moving our axis, because this is what most in our community we're doing. We're just moving the whole axis to the left, our whole axis to the right, and that we're like just mirroring each other, moving to all the same directions. Everything becomes a lot easier. So I saw a post of yours about leading from the outskirts of the body versus leading from the core. And I guess this is something that can get very technical, and I think maybe it's better if people can actually contact you in person to continue discussing that. But I would like to understand if you can share a little bit more about your approach.
I think it's something that we briefly covered when I was mentioning the shell, the biomechanics of movement in a couple. For me, it's not necessarily even leading from the core. For me, in the way I think of movement in a couple on the dance floor, is the core is connecting lower and upper part. I'm not leading from the core. I'm using the core to connect the upper and lower part. But the way I'm thinking again is the movement starts from the leader's grounding. So how the leader connects to the floor, because that's the only solid thing we have. The only solid thing in something that we can push against, something that we can use, is the ground. It's the only thing. We can't use anything else. Everything else is air or our partner. We shouldn't be using our partner, right? So we certainly can't use the air. So what do we use? We use the floor. We use the ground. So the movement comes from the one solid thing that there is. And our job as dancer, as a leader or follower, is to integrate the body enough through different parts of it. Obviously, there's this journey. If we're a taller person, then the journey will be longer than if we're a shorter person. So the journey from the ground up into the embrace and back down into the ground of the follower, that's a journey, and that all needs to be integrated. So I'm thinking of the leading from outskirts versus from the what you said, from the core, is not quite outskirts versus the core, is more, do I lead from my chest, which is falling? If I lead from my chest, I will be falling, right? I'm just moving my chest, and then the rest of the body follows, and I rely on my follower to give me the chest back so we don't fall together. Or am I leading from my hands, from my shoulders, which is what we call, manhandling? It's not very pleasant. If I lead just from the core, I'm not integrating the lower part of the body. The core for me in my brain is something that connects. It's something that is part of the big integrated system. And it's not really from the outskirts. It's like I'm taking the impulse from the floor, I pass it through the rest of my body, and I just need to make sure that as the information passes through, it's not being lost anywhere. So for that reason, I need to integrate everything. And yes, the information, if we are in open embrace, information needs to get all the way from the floor through the body and into the hands, right? If we're in an open embrace, it needs to get to our hands. So all of that journey through the whole body needs to be one integrated system. I can't start the information from my hand because there's nothing. It has nothing connected to it. So I think I don't remember which post you're referring to. Again, it's quite technical, and sometimes it's a bit difficult to explain it in words rather than showing it. And it's the same thing for the follower. The information comes, if we're an open embrace, comes from the hand, travels down into the body, and ends up on the floor. So that's what we're aiming for. But it needs to be integrated. So the core is fundamental in that system. So if we don't have the core that is working to connect all of this, the dance will be just a mess.
What I love when I hear you is that when you have such an approach, it's very easily to start identifying ways to fix your tango. Because you're like, okay, this part, connection with the ground, it works. Then connection between the heel and the knee maybe, and then the femur pushing the hips, it works. And then from there, something is wobbly. Okay, there is the issue. So we start understanding how we fix this part, and then tango is no longer this mysterious thing that for some people works and some people doesn't work.
Yes.
Even if we are not able to do it properly, as a student, with you, we can still know that, okay, my issue is there. That's what I need to do to work to fix it. And then you have this aim, you have this path. And I think this is what most people are missing in tango, a self-understanding of their own path, an understanding of their own path. Most of them, they just depend on the teacher day after day to come and say, okay, what do I need to fix today? What is the next thing? What's the next thing? Without having a bigger idea. It's like, okay, my teacher has told me, okay, these are the parts that don't work correctly. I have a general idea, how do I get there? And of course, then the teacher comes and gives you specific indications for each part of the process. but at the same time, you have your own complete system in your mind, and you understand, okay, this is the area I need to work on now in my tango. And I think this is very rare because most teachers, they're unfortunately missing process. Most of the teachers, they move around from the one step to the other. And even if they have a process, they cannot articulate it simply enough for the followers, for the students to understand it, and then have, their own map. Okay, I'm a student, I understand the map, I understand this country of tango, and I know I haven't visited yet, the beach, I haven't visited the mountain yet, but I understand more or less how the lakes work, and I think this is really, really, really interesting. I wanted to ask you, if somebody wants to learn more from you, how can they do it? Where are you located? Is there anything online?
I'm teaching in London. So I have my own studio in Hackney in East London, and sometimes I'm traveling around Europe. But yeah, my base is in London. So if people want to study with me, they're very welcome to come visit me. Or we can, even if somebody is very interested, and we can organize for me to come where they are. I'm very happy to do that. Again, as you say, thank you very much for noticing this, that I have a system. So it took me, again, years of fixing myself and analyzing things and integrating different other disciplines to understand tango for myself. So now that I have this one system that works, again, it's not a system just of biomechanics, even though that's where I am quite strong about, and I'm interested in that. But again, I think of it also, it's a system that is integrating biomechanics and the human side of it. Again, that's super important. It's just as important as biomechanics. Once we have a system, as you call it, the roadmap or the map of what is there, we know, okay, we can't yet look at the mountains, but we can figure out what's in the sea. So that's something that, yes, thank you very much for recognizing it. And if more people want to study with me, I'll be very happy to share.
Yeah, for me, it's very easy, as you say, when you have a new student coming into the class, and you can very fast understand, okay, this person will stay, this person will not stay. For me, it's the same thing with teachers. When there is a process behind it in the system, I can see it right away. If not, I see they're all over the place, moving from left to right. They create rules, and then they have 1,000 exceptions. And for me, it's just some people, they need to go through the process of writing a book in order to create a system. Some other people, they need to go through the process of creating an online course to create a system. Some other people, they need to fix all their own bad habits to understand the system and how to get there. And I think this is the beauty of tango. And I do remember you saying that, I can see it from your post, you're a very curious person, and I love people who approach tango with curiosity. It's a very open-minded approach. But I also know that you're not only trying to work with people that have this, perfect body and they come from sports too, but you're actually trying to find solutions for people who maybe they don't have the luxury to start tango when they are, I don't know, 5 years old or even 20, right? Or maybe they have a body that is broken by, I don't know, 1,000 different injuries. For me, it was like sitting in front of a computer for hours and hours, and I still do that, but I think I do it in a better way now. I think when you have a system, you're able to help people because you understand how the system will work in a perfect condition. And then you understand what you need to adapt if the person has an injury in their ankles, person has an injury in the shoulders. And I think this is quite necessary because in tango, we have a lot of people with many issues. In life.
Humans, we're normal humans coming from life into tango with everything that life gives us, the good and the bad.
And for me, it makes me think of a friend of mine. She actually came to the intensive with me, and we were both studying there. And she has a huge problem with her thigh. I think one muscle has completely atrophied. It's like there's nothing there. And she was always feeling like, I always feel bad when I go because I feel like I'm holding other people back. But the beauty there was that the teacher was able to explain and tell her, look, you're missing this part. All right. This is what ideally we would do, but since you don't have it, this is how we're going to tweak a little bit the system and make it work. And I think this is truly valuable.
Yeah, I agree with you because we cannot we cannot expect to be perfect. We are not going to be perfect. Like even the people who've been training since they were whatever 1 year old, and they've been training to become, let's say, a dancer, and then they become a tango dancer. Even these people will come with certain issues and certain patterns of movement in their body. But then trying to make everyone work the same way, it's just not possible. It's not viable. Somebody who is coming to tango from, I don't know, 15 years old, and staying for whatever 30 years and studying because they're coming from the tango family, versus somebody who's joining tango at 40 or 50. It's going to be very different things, right? So we need to be able to make tango work for everyone. We shouldn't make everyone work for tango. We should make tango work for everyone, right? It's a different approach.
We can create a printed banner with that. I really like that. We can create t-shirts like make tango work for everyone. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful interview. We covered a lot of ground. I have like a full page of like notes and stuff that I'm going to discuss when I share about it. Thank you so much for the time, for the energy, and for sharing all this with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dimitris.
Perfect. Ciao.
Ciao.
I hope this was useful. Make sure to connect with Oa on social media, and if any of the topics that we discussed were interesting for you, feel free to reach out to her and schedule an online class or a private class if you live close by. For more free tips, join the Curious Tanguero newsletter, and if you want to support the podcast, please share this episode and go to Amazon and buy any and as many of my books as you like. Most people know me from my book Tangofulness, available in many languages, but you can also enjoy the novel When the Embrace Whispers, the book Tango Tips by the Maestros, or the book How to Dance More in Milongas for Followers, which is the result of a questionnaire I sent to over 16,000 social tango dancers. They are all on Amazon. Links to them should be somewhere around this content. Hugs and stay curious.